Welcome back to IAS Net Study. This is the ethics series and this is the 26th video in this ethics series. In the last video, we talked about Thomas Hobbes, and now let's take few more thinkers and philosophers in the bird view. Once we have finished this bird view, we are going to have a detailed discussion. So let's get into the discussion of this. So after Thomas Hobbes, if you look at the 17th and 18th century, the revival of moral rationalism was seen. Many philosophers, many thinkers, they supported this moral rationalism. What is this moral rationalism? Usually, morality derived under moral rationalism. Rationality, you know that a decision based on logical reasoning, all these things. So here, morality it is derived from logical reasoning. See, there are moral concepts where this morality, whether the action is moral or immoral, whether the decisions are ethical or unethical, it is derived through experience. And there are school of thoughts where the morality is derived through religious doctrines. These kind of different things we have seen, but especially in the 17th and 18th century, there is a revival of moral rationalism. So here the important personalities under moral rationalism, it is Immanuel Kant and Samuel Clarke. Under moral rationalism, the important aspects you need to remember, that is, whatever the ethical principles we considered under moral rationalism, principles are universal and principles are objective. It means that truth is truth no matter what, whether it is this 500 years ago or after 500 years, it is truth. There is an aspect of universality, there is an aspect of objectivity before deciding whether it is moral or immoral. So moral rationalists, they argued that ethical principles, they are universal, they are objective in nature. Here this approach, it emphasized on duty, it emphasized on obligation, it emphasized on logical consistency. Whatever the situation, whatever the consequences, there is a logical consistency in the moral reasoning here. As an example, the concept of categorical imperative, it is given by Immanuel Kant. Under categorical imperative, what we focus is that there are few aspects, no matter whatever the situation, whatever the consequences, whatever the time period, this is not acceptable. And here, categorical imperative, one aspect you should not compromise is that dignity of an individual. Whether it is now ancient, medieval, modern, contemporary, dignity of individual, you cannot compromise with that. See, these are some of the factors, these are some of the examples comes under moral rationalism, right? So 18th and 17th and 18th century, this aspect of this idea of moral rationalism, it was supported by many philosophers. And another aspect, especially 17th and 18th century, the discussions on end-based ethics, end-based approaches, and the means-based approaches also. The uh, discussions or the analysis or the evaluation based on ends and mean-based, even these debates also emerge. These ideas, these uh, philosophies also emerged at this time period. There are few thinkers, they have supported this end-based philosophies, end-based approach, and there are some philosophers they supported means-based approach. End-based, means-based, in a simple way, I want to build an orphanage. Here, building an orphanage, outcome is I'm building an orphanage. So my action is moral. It is not going to consider any other thing. Whatever my actions, outcome is positive. So I am moral, I am ethical. But if you look at the means-based approach, under means-based approach, the way I am building an orphanage, that also matters a lot. That is the primary criteria here. If I am using my own money, then it is ethical, then it is moral. If I am stealing money from somebody else and I am using that money to build an orphanage, then that is immoral, because the means, the way I am doing it, that is immoral, because I am causing some kind of pain or some kind of trouble to the other person. I'm stealing money from you, I want to build an orphanage. Under end based approach, this is ethical, but under means based approach, I'm stealing money from you. Here I am causing pain, I am causing trouble, I am compromising value system in order to get the money, so this is considered unethical. So after 17th and 18th, especially 17th and 18th century, the discussions or the discourse were mainly focusing on this end based mechanism and the means based mechanism. And let's see who supported the end based mechanism and the means based approach. Now before that, let's continue the discussion where we left at the Thomas Hobbes. See, Thomas Hobbes talked about social contract theory, and the social contract theory, it means that I told you that I am an individual, I am surrendering my rights to the government, so it is responsibility of the government to give me the welfare. This is the idea under social contract theory. Now, the same social contract theory, there is an extensional definition has been given. The new dimension has been given by John Locke. Time period is 1632 to 1704 AD. And here he is an English philosopher, especially at the time of Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, there are philosophers from England, there are philosophers from Prussia, there are philosophers from French, different philosophers, different point of view. Keep these things in your mind. So from England at the point of Enlightenment, John Locke, he gave us contribution and is considered as a father of liberalism, because even though he talked about social contract, but he did not compromise with the rights, liberty, freedom of an individual. So the idea, whatever we at this point of time, if you look at the democratical setup, democratical country, the concept of freedom, rights, liberty, individualism, all these things are celebrated actually. If you look at the source, somewhere it started from John Locke. The ideas, the formatted or the formal approach or the formal meaning was given by John Locke in the during the Enlightenment period. He also accepted this idea of social contract, that government has to take care of me. But at the same time, he made sure that the citizens are not completely surrendering the rights. See, I am an individual. I have given my responsibility to the government to take care of me. But at the same time, I have certain rights. So I can question the government. If government does something wrong, I can question it now. But under Thomas Hobbes, I cannot question the government. Whatever the government does, I have to follow. Government does policy, I will follow that. I am not going to question. But under John Locke, I can question it because I have my rights. Here in India, I have my fundamental rights. Again, India, we are inspired by US constitution, and US constitution, the authors, they derive this, the influence is through from the John Locke. First, initially the England and the US constitution, where we see this idea of fundamental rights, all these things, and eventually so many countries, they've got independence, and so many countries have inculcated these ideas in their constitution also. So he gave that ideas, the formal ideas, and these ideas are inculcated in the modern democracies. The for his ideas form the foundation for modern democracy, constitutionalism, and the human rights. Again, remember that social contract theory, they extended the idea of social contract theory, but at the same time, he did not compromise with the. He advocated the idea of natural rights. It is nothing but fundamental rights that individuals, me being a part of this society, me being this part of the social contract, I also have certain rights, and I want my rights to be protected. I want my liberty to be protected. I want my freedom to be protected. So this idea is given by John Locke. And there was a question in the mains also, I think in the 2014 or 15 paper, the question on John Locke with respect to this idea of rights, idea of natural rights. Now let's move to the next one. The next philosopher, it is Voltaire, 1694 to 1788. Voltaire, again, Enlightenment period, we saw this philosopher. He's a French philosopher, writer, historian. The important thing, three aspects you need to remember with respect to Voltaire is that separation of church and the state. If you look at that 18th century, 17th century, the involvement of religion in the governance, involvement of religion in the ruling elite, it was very much. The even policy making, policy implementation, church had a very predominant role. The influence of church was very much visible, and Voltaire was not happy about it, and he uh, stood for this idea of separation of church and the state. Church is deals with religious doctrines, and these religious doctrines at that point of time, they were very rigid, and it was these religious doctrines were supporting the superstitions at the social level, and some religious institutions were established, and these religious institution, they are some kind of oppressive in nature to the people, to the at the ground level. So he was against it. One thing, he advocated for separation of church and the state, and even if you look at the so many countries in the western democracies, they strictly follow this idea, the separation of religion and the governance. And also he stood for freedom of religion, he stood for freedom of speech. Again, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the idea of natural rights, whatever the John Locke give, you can say that there is few more ideas added by Voltaire here. And his writing, they encourage certain attributes or certain value systems of tolerance, justice, civil liberties, and even at the present time also, just like John Locke's ideas influence modern democracies, even Voltaire ideas also influence the modern democratic ideas. And he emphasized on intellectual freedom, and he is one of the most influential voices of enlightenment. Mainly, predominantly, what you have to remember with respect to Voltaire, it is separation of church and the state, the religious institution and the governance, and then freedom of religion and the freedom of speech. Right? Yes. Then yes, we were talking about end-based approach, end-based ethics, means-based ethics. Now we'll get into this discussion. Immanuel Kant, there are few philosophers, they supported end-based approach. There are philosophers, they supported means-based approach. And Immanuel Kant is important personality who supported this idea of means-based ethics, means-based approach. It means that your actions are considered as ethical or unethical, moral or immoral, based on the way you do the things. Here I want to build an orphanage, and how do I build an orphanage? That also matters a lot. If I'm using my own money, it is ethical. If I'm stealing money from somebody else, that is unethical, that is immoral. So Immanuel Kant, and what you have to remember, Immanuel Kant, deontological ethics. Deontological ethics, it means that here means matters a lot, the way you do the things. So deontological ethics, deontology is nothing but duty. as an as a part, I'm an individual, I'm a part of this society, I'm a part of this country. I have certain duties, that I have to fulfill those duties towards my community, towards my country. So if my actions are based on these duties, then I am ethical. If my actions are not based on these duty, then I am, my actions, my decisions are unethical. So remember deontological ethics, remember the sense of duty, and another important aspect, categorical imperative. Categorical imperative, no matter what, no matter whatever the situation is, there are few aspects you are not supposed to compromise, you are not supposed to uh, you have to obey these things. And what are these categorical imperative things? That is dignity of an individual. So one should act only in ways that could become universal law for everyone, the moral rationalism. So there also we talked about these things, categorical imperative. You're not supposed to compromise with certain aspects. And here one of the categorical imperative aspect given by Immanuel Kant is that dignity of an individual. Right? So we are going to have a detailed discussion in the next layer of discussion. But at this point of time, just remember that means-based approach, deontological ethics, and uh, action should be guided not by pursuit of happiness, but sense of duty, duty-based ethics, and categorical imperative. Right? This is Immanuel Kant. Then Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham, he supported this idea of end-based ethics. Here, if the outcome is positive, your actions are positive. If outcome is negative, your actions are unethical. It is as simple as that. And one important uh, ideas or the philosophies given by Jeremy Bentham, you need to remember, that is utilitarianism. What is utilitarianism? Utilitarianism is that idea is that maximum benefit to maximum number of people. That is, if your actions are benefiting maximum number of people, then it is ethical. If your decisions are not opposite to that, then it is considered unethical. Here he rejected the idea of natural rights. See, he argued that rights are created by society to promote overall well-being. So here he's focus, rather than he's focusing on rights of entire society or the overall state, rather than individual rights, idea of natural rights, individual rights, rather than as a society. Let us see that. So maximum number to maximum benefit to maximum number of people. And he believed that all human actions are motivated for desire for pleasure, avoidance of pain. And again, as an example, a dam, take a construction of dam. Under utilitarian approach, construction is dam, this is going to help 1 lakh people. So this is considered ethical because outcome, it is helping more number of people, obviously. But in the way of constructing this dam, there are 5,000 people, they are going to be displaced, and their houses there, it is going to submerge underwater. So 5,000 people are going to be affected in a negative way, but this is helping 1 lakh people. So under Jeremy Bentham's idea of utilitarianism, this is ethical because maximum benefit to maximum number of people. So this is Jeremy Bentham's utilitarianism. This is called quantitative utilitarianism. Here it is mainly focusing on number, actually quantity. So quantitative utilitarianism. Next come another philosopher. The next philosopher, he refined this idea of utilitarianism. Here we are compromising with justice aspect of these 5,000 people. 1 lakh people, they are getting advantage, they are getting benefit out of this dam. But what about these 5,000 people? Here the justice aspect has been compromised by utilitarianism. But there is another philosopher comes after Jeremy Bentham. He gave the different approach to the utilitarianism. Let's talk about that. And the name of the individual is John Stuart Mill, JS Mill. 1806 to 1873. Here he also supported this end-based approach, end-based virtues, end-based ethics. Here also utilitarianism, he supported that maximum benefit to maximum number of people. But there is a clause to it. And what is that? The clause is that I told you that government is building a dam and it is helping 1 lakh people. They are getting benefit. And there are 5,000 people, they are adversely getting affected. But under John Stuart Mill idea of utilitarianism, even they are also taken into the consideration, in the sense that proper rehabilitation has to be given. Proper, you have to hear what are their problems. You have to give proper money, proper rehabilitation, display replacement. Make sure that their rights are not compromised. Here John Stuart Mill is focusing on this justice aspect. So the same idea, utilitarianism, here under John Stuart Mill, even the minorities, here the 5,000 people are minorities. J.S. Mill idea of utilitarianism, it is not compromising rights of these 5,000 people. And this idea, it is called qualitative utilitarianism. See, before Jeremy Bentham, it is quantitative utilitarianism, and John Stuart Mill, it is qualitative utilitarianism. That is the distinction difference between Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. You can pause it and you can go through the video, but ultimately this is the basic understanding between Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. And the next eminent philosopher, Karl Marx. 1818 to 1883. Karl Marx, here there is a moral outrage against exploitation here. And he developed this idea of scientific socialism. The discussion here is, the issue here is capitalism. He was against the concept of capitalism. He tells that various writings he has mentioned that this capitalism, it has created inequality in the society, social inequality and economic inequality. It has been created by this capitalism, and it has created two distinguishing. One side there is a haves, people who have money. Another side have nots, people who are working for these people. So this eventually led to the uh, discrimination in the society, social level, economic level, and even at the cultural level. So this has created some kind of exploitative nature, some kind of exploitative experience at the ground level. Now, how do you deal with that? In order to have a progress, there should be a class struggle. Class haves and have nots. Class struggle should be there, and this ultimately will lead to the classless and stateless society. See, the idea seems very radical. Here, you can go for a violence, you can go for a fight. Ultimately, radical methodology has been instigated here in order to establish a welfare society. Even he also talking about welfare society, he also talking about equality, but the way you achieve this, it is quite radical here. Here there is an outrage, there is an exploitation, and there is an outrage to deal with this exploitation. Again, he talks about equality. I told you that he talks about fair distribution of resources. He talks about communist society, but how do you achieve this? That's where the question mark is. Again, a lot of support is there with respect to communist ideologies also, and there are so many communist countries are also there now. Communist countries have reduced, but still communist countries are there till now. Even the idea is still relevant even at this point of time. And advocated economic structures, uh, restructuring that shape politics, culture, and morality. And he talked about historical materialism. Is a theory given by Karl Marx, and he told that economic structure, they are going to influence politics. Economic structures, they are going to influence culture, and even economic structures, they are going to influence morality also. So in order to change politics, culture, morality at the social level, where you have to focus, where what you have to target, it is the economic structure. Again, the exploitation and the outrage against the exploitation. Here he's talking about equality through a radical means, right? This is with respect to Karl Marx. And the next philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, and the time period, I think it's some mistake in the time period. Let me check that. 1844 to 1900. Friedrich Nietzsche is a German philosopher. Again, some kind of uniqueness is there with respect to his philosophy also, and he told that morality, it is shaped by usually weak people, and weak people, they decide the morality, what is right and what is wrong, and it is going to be imposed on the strong people. See, the if you look at the if you consider what are the important values or the social values, humility, meekness, these are some of the values. And he tells that these kind of values are created by weak people because they want to control the strong people. So the he distinguished the moral values or morality into slave morality and the master morality. Slave morality, usually the values of pity, kindness, equality, these are the slave morality. This slave morality, they want to control the strong morality, the master morality. Master morality is strength, creativity, courage. These are created in a way that weak are going to control the strong people. So this is a different approach given by Frederick. Actually, see, his ideas are kind of misrepresented or misquoted. And if you look at the fascist Nazis, they misuse these ideas. They use this philosophy to substantiate whatever they are doing. And if you look at the niche, he himself, Friedrich Nietzsche himself, he opposed racism and nationalism. But fascist government, fascist and Nazis at that point of time, they followed these ideas and they uphold whatever it is telling, that slave morality, master morality. And he introduced the concept of Ubermensch, idea of Ubermensch. Ubermensch or the Superman, idea of Superman, it is nothing but it is an ideal individual who creates his own values and he comes above the herd mentality. So when you are above the herd mentality, you cannot be controlled by others. Then you develop your own values and you stand for these values. You're not going to follow what other person is following. Like conformity. Conformity is that, especially in the second chapter or the third chapter, attitude, we were talking about this conformity while discussing social influence. Conformity, what other person doing, I also start doing it. I also start supporting those things. Here, there is a herd mentality. Is that he criticized this herd mentality, criticized the conformity, he criticized mediocrity also. He told that he advocated for self overcoming, creativity, and intellectual independence. These are very strong point of view are there. Again, uh, usually these extreme ideas are usually they are not asked in the examination, but you just have keep these ideas in your mind. And most of the books, they've discussed this idea, these philosophies also. So I'm just covering that. So what you have to remember with respect to Friedrich Nietzsche is slave morality, master morality. The weak, they create these slave morality, and these slave moralities are imposed on the strong people. In order to control them, they're imposed on that. And Friedrich, he criticized the herd mentality. Everybody is doing, I'm also doing, this kind of herd mentality. He criticized that. And he gave the idea of Superman, Ubermensch. And Superman here, the Superman is the one, is an ideal individual who creates his own values and who rises above the herd mentality. So this is with respect to this philosopher or this philosophy. I think this is it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next video. The next video, we are going to take the detailed discussion on the philosophers and the philosophy. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good time.